All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well. Peace and blessings to the elect of Israel out there that's pushing this word in all truth and sincerity. All right, this lesson is going to be about how, a lot of Italians are in fact Israelites. All right, if their line goes back, especially the Sicilians and Southern Italians, and it's inspired because when the other day when we were at camp, this guy, he came up, and although he looks like a so-called white man, his spirit beareth witness with our spirit. Because he came straight up and saw the first sign that said, which is right here, and it says the so-called white man is going into slavery, and that was the first sign he saw, and he goes, yeah, that's true. So, Esau isn't gonna admit that, he's going into slavery, and at first he thought that we're Muslims. And then, the brother asked, why do you think we're Muslims? And he goes, well, I apologize. I'm starting to read, more of your signs now, and now I feel foolish. He's like, okay, well, basically saying, well, let me grab it too. Romans 8 and 16. This is Romans 8 and 16. And it says, the Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of the Most High, the children of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, all right? And that spirit it's capitalized right here, so it's talking about the Ruach HaKodesh, right? That Holy Spirit, that spirit that Yahweh Shai left, the disciples, that spirit of understanding this word, all right? So if an individual, resonates with the spirit of truth, the Ruach HaKodesh, then, he's an Israelite, man, because he was getting it. And, I just want to go into a little bit of, the Italians' history and how, hey, it lines up with with the curses, right? And then I'm going to grab, actually, before I get into it, let's get let's get Deuteronomy 28 and 64 and the curses. It says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. All right, and one of those places was Italy. Right? And you even had, Apostle Paul write, this was, you know, this was the Apostle Paul writing to the Romans, which is in Italy, you know. So you had Israelites scattered in Italy back then. But yeah, it irks me whenever Jake just wants to dismiss history and just chalk it up to you being so-called white, so you got to be an Edomite. No, man, especially over there, like the eastern part of the world, even like Europe, it has a dense history that you have to look into to understand and discern different spirits among those people, because over here in America, you had a lot of mixed race going on, and that's just America is only about 250 years old, but those countries over in the east, they have a real vast and dense history that you got to look into. And then you had even more, like you had more mixing going on during the Roman Empire, Greek and Roman Empire, and even before then. But anyways, somebody asked, why do Italians appear to be prejudiced against Sicilians? All right, and it says, is it puzzling? It is puzzling, isn't it? Most Americans consider Sicilians to be Italians, so how can prejudice exist between people who live in different regions of the same country? Although this prejudice is considered by many to be more historical than contemporary, you will find that an ample number of Sicilian families who believe it still exists. And then this is just an account of, you know, a Sicilian American who was still um, looked down upon. They thought that her food was cooked dirty just because she was Sicilian. And that was in 1996, so not that long ago. Um, and then it says there are a number of reasons that Italians might feel they are superior to Sicilians. Sicily has been an impoverished region since being robbed of its national treasury in 1860, when it was occupied by the Italian army. Yeah, and it says during the occupation, the factories of the region were disassembled and relocated to northern Italy. Yeah, and this this the Italian army just straight up like they just went into southern Italy and just took over and relocated all their hubs up north. And it says without a manufacturing base, the island was forced of olives, lemons, almonds, oranges, and grapes in economic survival. So Esau ripped them of their resources. Although they being of the same geographical location, this is still a spiritual hatred, even though the southern Italians and the Sicilians, you know, uh, uh, spoke the same language damn near. They, it's still a spiritual hatred between Jacob and Esau. It says, along with poverty, the heritage of Sicilians also assaulted their reputation. In 831 AD, the Moors, dark-skinned Arabs, which they weren't Arabs, they're Israelites, all right, but they adopted that Muslim philosophy. But among the Moors, you still had Jakes that were keeping uh, the Israelite customs, but then also you had other vain philosophies. They were also some were also Catholics. Um, but anyways, the Moors who were Judah, the tribe of Judah, some of them Benjamin and Levi, um, but predominantly Judah. It says entered and dominated Palermo and other major cities on the island. The Moorish reign lasted for 230 years. During that time, there was much racial mixing that occurred. As a result, northern Italians tend to look upon Sicilians as people of color. So that's why they're, that's why, uh, uh, there's that spiritual hatred is because, hey, some of them are Edomites and some of them are Israelites. All right. Although, through that much mixing, you have Israelites coming out looking like this, and that's written about in the scriptures. This is Psalms 106. I'm going to start at 34. All right, let me start at 32. They angered him also at the waters of strife, so that it went ill with Moses for their sakes, because they provoked his spirit, so that he spake unadvisedly with his lips. They did not destroy the nations concerning whom the Lord commanded them. Right, and that was a commandment by the Most High Yahweh. Whenever Israelites were to go and conquer a people, they were supposed to they were supposed to do it a certain way. Cut off, all the males, and take their women for concubines. All right, but they didn't do that. It says, but were mingled among the heathen and learned their work. So they started becoming family with these other nations. And the scriptures say, don't trust thine enemy. Never trust thine enemy. And this is why, because whenever now you have a great confusion of, you know, we're divided. You know, Esau divided and conquered Israel. He labeled some of us as Sicilians and some of us as so-called Negroes and some of us as everything under the sun except for Israelites. So now you have these scuffles of black versus white when really it's Jacob versus Esau. All right, it's a spiritual thing. It's not about how you look. And they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. Yeah, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto devils, and shed innocent blood, even the blood of their sons and of their daughters, whom they sacrificed unto the idols of Canaan, and the land was polluted with blood. And yeah, you had, hey, the biggest weapon is that Catholicism. That's another indication to see if they're a Jake. If they were conquered and they started um, being Catholics, so-called Mexicans, really all the northern tribes, but even the um, Filipinos, Sicilians, Irish, um, a lot of the Polish, they're they're Catholics, but a lot of them are Jakes too. Um, like the Gronkowski and Sosnowski, those long Polish names. They were discriminated against too whenever they came over in like the 1900s as well. Um, and you have to go into that history to discern, you know, what the spiritual difference between the Edomite Polish and the Israelite Polish. You know what I mean? Um, but anyways, it says if being perceived as poor, dirty, and being treated inferior because of race isn't enough, Sicilians are also suspected of being criminals. La Cosa Nostra, or the Mafia, was born in Palermo in the mid 19th century. Still today, some areas of Sicily are not under the full control of the legal government, but are run by the Mafia. The belief that all Sicilian families, whether they live in the U.S. or in their native land, must be in the same way related to the mob continues to live on in the thinking of some. During the early 1900s, a wave of Italians and Sicilian immigrants entered the U.S. There was a cost of admission, though, because the immigrants had to declare the amount of money they were bringing with them into the country. Those without funds were turned away. So if you didn't have money to get into the country, you're just straight up sent back. And that's a long journey back. The average Northern Italian's declaration was $23.53, whereas Sicilians averaged only $8.67. Those without funds were known to attempt to sneak into the country without proper documentation. Illegals, illegal immigrants. Immigrants without papers became known as their initials WOP, WOP. Um, hey, and that wasn't those were fighting words if you were to call a so-called Italian a WOP. It says the terms WOP, Dago, refers to dirty, and Guinea, derived from Guinea Negro, were labels assigned to Sicilians because of their dark complexion by those who considered themselves to be Anglos, such as Northern Italians. Most recently, with the advent of the television show Jersey Shore, I forgot about that show. Other ethnic slurs for both Italians and Sicilians have re-entered the American lexicon. Yeah, and those Jersey Shore motherfuckers, they're definitely Jakes too, you know. But yeah, I laugh because I grew up with so-called Italians, and we always thought it was funny as shit to a to look up those ethnic slurs because they were really used in like the 50s and 60s, even the 70s, and it was just funny to call each other wops and guineas and shit. And Guinea, that's a country in West Africa. So I mean, people know the history of them, and we even asked him, or I asked him, I was like, hey, you know about like the Moors and how they conquered Sicily, and he was like, yeah, I know all that. I was like, yeah, so you very may well, more than likely, go back to the tribe of Judah, you know. And because he, like I said, that his spirit, he saw, so-called white people going into slavery. He's like, yeah, I understand that. He got it, like, you know. And that's how I was when I first heard, the truth. When I heard brothers, talk about the so-called white man, my mind instantly was like, oh yeah, like the motherfuckers that, run the government and stuff. Because I know like Jake knows in his spirit that he doesn't run shit, you know? So whenever we demonize, or rightfully so, or it's really not even demonization because, hey, the Most High created Esau, Edom to be the devil. So whenever we bring out the truth about, that Esau is the devil, it resonates with, Israelite spirits. It makes sense. It starts to make sense, especially when you bring out the scriptures, exposing them. Um, but yeah, it says Goomba, a thug or mafioso, and Guido and Guidette, if they're female. Guido, that was a funny one too. Another northern term referring to Italians who try to portray a mafia mentality or want Sicilian and Italian heritage. Discrimination in any form has never made such sense to me, so it is difficult to say exactly why some Italians might want to carry a bias against Sicilians, other than the fact that they were historically conditioned to do so. It is always difficult to, and the reason why is because like I said, it's a spiritual hatred. All right, it doesn't make sense because you don't have the spirit to discern the difference between the two. It's just like, the spiritual hatred between the so-called Irish and Anglo-Saxons throughout history. It's because a lot of the Irish are Israelites, and a lot of those, so-called Anglo-Saxon are actually Edomites, according to the scriptures. All right, and that's not to say that among those Anglo-Saxons or Northern Italians, you're still gonna have Israelites among them, you know, because hey, we were scattered amongst all people. Deuteronomy 28:64. The Lord shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth even unto the other. So if there's people there, Jake's there too. If there's any nation there, Jake's gonna find a way in there. All right. I'm gonna. Oh yeah, I wanted to get Romans, 2. I'll start at 13. For not the hearers of the law are just before the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Al Shai, but the doers of the law shall be justified. For when the Gentiles, which have not the law, do by nature the things contained in the law, these having not the law are a law unto themselves. So these Gentiles are referring to Israelites that are in a Gentile state of mind. You know, they're Israelites, but they don't know that they're Israelites. But they do the thing, but do by nature the things contained in the law. You know, which means they have a conscience. They know right from wrong. They may they may not know all the laws, statutes, and commandments that are written in the scriptures, but deep down inside of them, they know that something's wrong about doing certain activities. Like one is homosexuality. They a lot of Jakes they're not down with that. But verse 15 it says, which show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts the meanwhile accusing or else excusing one another. Yeah, so they, Jake, that's part of their spirit bearing witness with our spirit. Even though this dude may not know the prophecies written about and Obadiah, he saw that sign and he resonated with it. His conscience bared witness with him. I wanted to jump down to verse 28. It says, "For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew which is one inwardly." This is a so-called Judite, from the tribe of Judah, inwardly, right? Doesn't matter what he looks like outwardly, It's about the spirit, all right? Um, and circumcision is that of the heart and the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of the Most High, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. So yeah, circumcision is about circumcising your heart, because once you circumcise your heart, meaning your mind, you start, adhering to the law, statutes, and commandments, then you're gonna start keeping, not just hearers of the word, but you're gonna start practicing them, and that's what it's about, man. We're calling. Let me grab Tobit 13. Hey, and we have to, this is part of the ministry. We have to, do research into other countries and discern which spirits go back to Israel and which ones go back to these heathen nations. Because this is Tobit 13:3. It says, "Confess him before the Gentiles, ye children of Israel, for he hath scattered us among them." All right, because this thing is about, waking up the elect of Israel. Hey, and guess what? The elect of Israel are scattered, throughout the four corners of the earth. So it's part of this ministry is to look into different countries and nations and see where or how Israel has been scattered among them, and discern, like I said, discern between the two different spirits. There declare his greatness and extol him before all the living, for he is our Lord, and he is the Most High, our Father forever. And he will scourge us for our iniquities, and will have mercy again, and will gather us out of all nations, among whom he hath scattered us. So yeah, part of him, the Most High Yahweh through his Son Yahushai scourging us, for our iniquities, was to scatter us among nations. All the other nations divide us, But in doing so, hey, he's also gonna have mercy on us and gather us from all these different nations and tongues. And you can read about that in Revelation, the 7th chapter. But the main point is, hey, look, you're gonna have Israelites among all nations. But I just wanted to touch on a little bit of the history of Italians, because hey, this Lord willing, this guy repents. He said he was from Detroit, so hey, brothers out there in Detroit, if you see a guy looking like this, he's heard about the truth, But yeah, you're gonna have Israelites, looking so-called Italian. But yeah, Lord willing, this video is edifying and uplifting to the elect. And once again, I'm going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Ba'ashem Akakodash. Shalom.